As I said earlier, considering the question that was asked last week, today we will look at stress. And I hope that after the end of next week, we should be able to have finished the topic stress and move on to another topic. We will look at stress. We would also look at syllable because we cannot discuss stress in isolation. The concept of syllable is key to the discussion on stress. All right, are you with me?
Yes,
so
sir.
As I said, that the first thing to do before moving into stress is to understand the concept of syllable. All right. So when we say syllable, basically we are looking at a unit of pronunciation that has one vowel sound. Okay, unit pronunciation that has one vowel sound. I remember in those days when we were in school, teachers would say that a syllable is the amount of, speech sound that can be pronounced in one heartbeat. For instance, if you want to pronounce the word apple, you are going to breathe twice. Okay, your heart will pound twice to say apple, apple. Okay, so the in a word. Okay. Part of the word. Okay. Of course, a word can also be a syllable. That's what we refer to as syllable. That has just one vowel sound. So a syllable is the part of the word that contains a unit, okay, pronounced once as a unit. It's a monosyllabic word, which means a word with just one syllable, like saying go, come. So in syllable is the vowel sound, okay? The vowel sound is the most important element in consonant sound before the vowel and after the vowel. But the most important thing is that you have the vowel sound, because a vowel makes a syllable. If there's no vowel in a particular word, which is hard to get, then there is no syllable. Okay, so what makes a syllable is the presence of a vowel sound and just one vowel sound. So in the word that you have more than one vowel sound, means you have more than one syllable. Is that okay? Pronounce it, the pronounce easy access. All right, so let's now move to stress. Do you really understand the concept of syllable? Okay,
Yes,
so a
sir.
word that has one syllable is called what? A monosyllabic word. A word that has two syllables is called a disyllabic word. Okay, it means has two syllables. A word that has more than two syllables we refer to as a polysyllabic word. Polysyllabic word. Okay, so with that, we can then move to stress. I'll try to explain that before I share my slides. Are you with me? So we
Yes,
say
sir.
a stress is the extra force. The extra force used when pronouncing a particular word or syllable. The extra force used when pronouncing a particular word or syllable. If you have, for instance, a word like mango, okay, the stress will not be on both man and go, because in English language, stress is very important. In fact, without stress, the English language will not be what it is. The English language is a highly stressed language, unlike some other languages like Chinese, where stress does not really matter. English language is highly stressed. So we say stress is that extra force used when pronouncing a particular word or syllable. That is just stress. Okay. So English uses stress, and it is in this wise referred to as stress-timed language. As I said, so one of the syllables is strongly stressed. That is, it is pronounced with greater energy. Okay, so any syllable, any part of the word that is pronounced with a greater energy, that is where you have the stress, and that is what we refer to as word stress. Of course, there are three major types of stress, but then two of them are highly considered in exams like WASSCE and then UTME, WASSCE and UTME. Okay, so we have the word stress. We have the sentence stress, and then we have the emphatic stress. Now, next week we would consider emphatic stress, but today we will look at word stress, and we will look at the rules that govern word stress. Okay, we won't touch on sentence stress because it's rare in those exams. We'll focus on only word stress and then emphatic stress, which we will look at next week. So in English, stress has a meaning, and changing the stress pattern of an utterance can bring about a completely different meaning. Okay, in fact, the way you pronounce a word can determine the part of speech or the class of the word. Okay, for instance, the word subject, S-U-B-J-E-C-T, subject. Okay, and then when we say subject, you know, it is a noun if it is stressed on the first syllable. So by subject, I mean a thing or person that is being discussed or described, the subject of a discussion, or the topic or theme of a branch of knowledge. For instance, mathematics is a subject in the school system. Okay, so subject as a noun is stressed on the first syllable. Subject. So the stress is on the first syllable. But then if you then change the stress pattern, if you have subject, you discover that the class of that word will change to a verb. Is that not so? Okay, so the pronunciation of the word places the stress on the first syllable in subject. Okay, but on the other subject, which is a verb, you have the stress on the second syllable. We'll look at the rules that govern all this. I'm just trying to introduce the class to what we mean by stress. So as I said earlier, is that extra force that you place on a particular syllable. And so that's what we refer to as the primary stress. Any word that you stress louder, longer than other parts of words, the word, any syllable that is stressed louder or longer is referred to as the primary stress. And then you also have the secondary stress. So now I'm going to share my slide with you. So let me share my screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what do I have here? Please kindly read.
Word stress in English.
Okay, word stress in English. All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's say these words. Can you try to pronounce these words? The first one is what?
Photograph.
Photograph, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The second one is what?
Photographer.
photographer.
Graphic.
Okay, now the first word, photograph. Photograph is a noun.
Yeah.
Is that so? Is a noun. You have the
Yes, sir.
stress on the photograph. Photograph. Okay, but then you have what we call a stress shift. When you have what we call the photograph to make. Now you can see that in photographer, the stress is no longer on the first syllable, right? It moves towards
Yes, sir.
the second syllable because the word is now a syllable longer. Okay, so there is what we call stress here. Photographer. So the toe there is longer and than other syllables. But then when we then add an adjective, and there is a rule governing syllable, which is the syllable before. Okay, we will get there. So here, photographic. Okay, so the stress, the penultimate syllable. So let's move on. The three words. You can see that here you have four as the longest syllable. So it has three syllables, but it is stressed on the what? First syllable. And then the second one, photographer. And as I said earlier, syllable is the vowel sound, right? O is a diphthong in fo, o, and then to. Now here you have the schwa sound, and that's what we see in the first example. And then graph, you have the short R sound. Okay, but then in the second, the stress shifts to toe. Now the toe now does not contain the schwa sound, but contains the O. So the stress shifts to the second syllable. And then in the last example, you have the stress on graph. Okay, the long R sound there. So the first two syllables will have the short now, to understand stress, it is important that you understand sounds in English, phonetic sounds, okay? It is very before moving to stress, but I wanted to attend to the question asked last week. So then, what is word stress? A word stress means a prominent syllable. The syllable that is the longest, that is the most stressed, okay, is the prominent syllable. And you can see the marks here, okay? Here, where you have the circle, you have the word prominent and the primary stress. Secondary stress is indicated by the dots, like a square. So the word teacher, for instance, has how many syllables? Hello? Are you with me? All right, the word teacher has 2 syllables. And the trick is this, please pay attention. Any syllable that has the shortest sound in English language, which is the schwa sound, any syllable that has the schwa sound, any syllable that has the schwa sound does not take the stress. Any syllable that has the schwa sound does not take the stress. The schwa sound is like the inverted E. Okay, when you write E, upside down. That's the Schwa sound. And the Schwa sound is the shortest sound in English language. It is what we refer to as a weak vowel. So it does not take stress. All right. So teacher has the Schwa sound on the second syllable. So that cannot be stressed. So the stress will be on the first syllable. Teacher. Okay. Now in the word beautiful. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. In the word beautiful, you also have the stress on the first syllable. Okay, because the syllable there is the long short vowel sound. Okay, that's the monophthong, long monophthong sound. That's what you have in the first syllable, and then you have the short sound in full. Okay, so then let's move to the third example. Here you have the stress on the third syllable, and this is the reason. Okay. Some will tell you that the main stand under could be a prefix. So any prefix cannot take a stress, and suffix can also not take what? Stress. Okay, what can take stress is the root word, the most important word in the most important syllable in a word, especially when you have the root word, the word that can stand on its own. So you understand, the stress is on the third syllable. Okay, because under will be taken as what? A prefix. All right, in continue, you have the stress on the second syllable. Now we then look at the basic word stress, and there are the rules that govern word stress. So there are two basic things to keep in mind that will help you determine how to stress a word. There are what? Two basic things that you keep in mind. The first one word, one stress. A word can only have one primary stress. One word cannot have two stresses. Okay? So primary stress has to be on one syllable in a word, cannot be on two syllables. You can have two stress, then the second one will be what we call secondary stress and not the primary stress. And then the other thing you need to consider is that the stress is always on the vowel sound. The stress is what? Always on the vowel sound. Consonants are never stressed. Is that okay? Consonants are never stressed. The stress is always on the what? On the vowel sound. That is a very key understanding. If you have that, you have a very key understanding. So how to pronounce word stress? Are you with me?
Okay. When a syllable is stressed, it is pronounced longer in duration, higher
Longer in duration, higher in pitch,
volume,
louder in volume. Okay, so these are the three things you should look out for when you are trying to pronounce a word. The syllable that is longer, that is higher in pitch, and that is louder, okay, would take the stress. All right, please, let's move on. Yes, please continue reading.
Unstressed syllables are weak or small.
Good. So unstressed syllables are weak or small. And it is certain that the Schwa sound is constantly unstressed. The weakest sound or the shortest sound in English language is the what? The Schwa sound. Okay, the inverted E. All right, so how do you say this, for instance? Okay, so we say teacher. Okay, so it is longer. The first syllable is longer. And then you have the second syllable drops. The pitch would drop. Teacher, teacher. and then it is also louder. Teacher. Okay. Now, all three combined, you have teacher. All right. So you know already that there are three things to consider, and the pitch, and then the loudness. The syllable that has stress, the syllable that has the highest pitch and that is louder, okay, has the stress. When you have a disyllabic word, a word with two syllables, if the word is a noun, in most cases, if the word is a noun, it is stressed on the first syllable. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
When you have a disyllabic word, that is a word with two syllables, if it's a noun, it is stressed on what? First syllable. If it's also an adjective, in most cases, it's stressed on what? The first syllable. But if it is a verb, it is stressed on what? On the second syllable, which is the last syllable. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Now you have some examples here. I took an example earlier, which is subject, and then the verb would be what? Subject. All right. So in these examples here, you have center. Okay. You have the Schwa sound in center in the ter. Okay. So the stress on the first syllable, and then you have object. But then you also have the word object, which is a verb, and that will be stressed on the second syllable. This word flower is controversial because some people will tell you that it has one syllable and not two syllables. And the reason is that it has what we call a triphthong. It means we have monophthong, diphthong, and diphthong, you have just one vowel sound. But when you have a diphthong, you have a combination of two short vowels. And then in a triphthong, you have a combination of three vowels, short vowel sounds. Okay, short vowel, which is what? In most cases, it's the Schwa sound. You have added to. So here you have to the verb. I said earlier that has two syllables will take the stress on the second syllable, as in release. So the stress on this is on the second syllable. Had meet, arrange, right? First syllable and stress on it. You are taking an exam and you took a disyllabic easy for you because you already know it's on the syllable. It's an adjective, it's on the first syllable. So let's move on to another rule. Now, when you have compound words, if it means the combination of two different words. For instance, excuse me, you have desktop, desk and what? Top brought together to give you desktop. If it's a noun, the stress will be on the first word, which are the top, okay? Desktop, the first syllable word that is, will take the stress, the primary stress. But in this case, you have word syllables. Case is another. If you have word, bookshelf. So it's very easy when you see a word that is a noun that has what we call a compound noun. Two words joined together as one. Okay, they are together or they are apart. The most important thing is that if you have a compound word that is a noun, the stress is on the what? First syllable. Is that okay? Same in bookshelf, greenhouse. All right. But if it's an adjective, it's an adjective or a verb on the second syllable. Just as the rule that we have when you have the word that has two syllables that is a noun, the same applies to compound words. Okay, adjective would then take its first syllable to be on the second syllable. In words like, that's for an adjective, have hard-headed. Okay, hard will be on the second word, and then old-fashioned, fashion just to be on the second. You have also the verbs. I am going to cite some examples. I'll try to use my screen, whiteboard later, but let's finish this. Okay, I don't know if you understand what a phrasal verb is. Phrasal verb basically is the combination of a verb and articles, okay, in the verb position. For instance, turn off is a phrasal verb because you have turn, okay, which is a verb, and then you have off, okay, position, and then buckle up. So we have a verb, and then you have a preposition after it, or you have a verb or an adverb that tells position after it. Then you have a phrasal verb, okay, phrasal verb. Now let's move to when it comes to stress. And these rules are very important. If you know them, you won't have problems in English language. Okay? Word with added ending. When you have suffix IC added to a word, the stress will be, are you paying attention?
Yes, sir.
The stress will be before the ending, which means on what we call the penultimate syllable. The syllable before what? The last. When you have IC, when we talk about polysyllabic words, words that have more than 2 syllables are polysyllabic words. Okay, we have less than 10 minutes. We'll try to make do of the time we have. Okay, in this case, you have, look at this, economic. Okay, the stress will be on the syllable before the last. Economic. Okay, economic. Okay, so you have the no taking the stress, which is because of the standard rule. Then the same here. You have electrical, right? Electrical. Now, you have IC in electric. Is that also?
Yes, sir.
You can see the stress is on the syllable before where you have the what? The IC. Okay, so now you have a shift also, just like what we were saying before. Okay. So the stress here will be on the syllable before the IC. So electrical. Okay. In the cool, you have the schwa sound. So most words that have the schwa sound, don't forget, will not take the stress because the schwa sound is the weakest sound. It's a weak vowel. You don't stress with vowels. All right. So when you have words that end in T-I-O-N, okay, words that end in T-I-A-N and S-I-O-N, you are going to have the stress on the penultimate what? Syllable, which means the syllable before the last is one syllable. Okay. So then let's move on to some other rules. So if you have please pay attention, if you have a word ending in P-H-Y, G-Y, T-R-Y, C-Y, F-Y, see most of the words ending in Y and then A-L, they are stressed on the third syllable before the end, not the penultimate. Okay, the syllable before the penultimate as such words. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. So move on. The same thing applies to meter. Now look at this. The same way, and we already talked about this. We talked about this earlier, that if such words are what? Nouns, you stress them on the first syllable. If they are verbs, you stress them on the what? Second syllable. Okay, so here you have conflict, conflict. Then you have conflict, conflict. Okay, here you have defect, defect, defect. Okay, export. Okay, export, export. Okay, export, sport, sport. Extra, chart. Okay. Permit means to go out. Okay. Protest. Okay. Know that when you have a disyllabic word that is a noun, it is stressed on the first syllable. And when you have it as what? A verb, it is stressed on the second syllable. Let's take some words and I will see if you, so let's move away from here now. And then we'll take some examples. Let's practice. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then I'll come back. Let's see if we can use the whiteboard. Where would the stress be on this word? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the stress would be on which word?
MA, information.
Okay, why should the stress be on MA?
Because it has a vowel, MA is a vowel, and you said any word that ends, it comes before word that ends with IONT.
T-I-O-N, very good. All right, so in that case, you have the stress on the penultimate syllable, which is may, right? Information.
Yes, sir.
In fact, most times, all the may, che, appreciation, CA, A words, because they are, the A there is a diphthong. Okay, in most cases, it will be longer than, in fact, the longest vowel in a word takes the stress. In fact, that's a simple way to put it. The longest vowel sound in a word takes the stress. So if, for instance, you have a word that has, that has a monophthong and has a diphthong and has a triphthong, the stress will be on the triphthong, right?
Yes.
But if you have a word that only monophthong, the stress will be on what? The diphthong. Okay, so vowel sound takes the stress. It's as simple as that. Now let's look at some other words. Let's look at some other words based on the rules. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, this word.
Okay.
Where would the stress be?
The MI, commission.
Okay, commission. Very good. Okay, so the stress will be on the second syllable here. Okay, so that's good. Now let's take another example. Another example. I would see if you've been following. Let's say, so this word here has the stress where?
Solidify. DI.
Why DI? What is those words that end in Y? Why? Where do they have their stress?
And with Y.
Yes.
Have their stress. Before the Y. And you thank you, sir.
We want to say a big thank you to the Jason Charity Support Foundation